First of all, I'd like to say good evening to my many friends, also to my many enemies. Once again, this is another episode of Roosevelt Sounds Off, and this is Roosevelt Sounds Off number 53. And my title now says, With My Own Eyes. I'll say that again, with my own eyes. Now, the reason how come I came up with this title is, first of all, anybody who has known me personally, and anybody who has watched me over the last 3 to 4 years that I have been doing this, I've talked about and dealt with other issues along the way also as well. But, any of you all who have watched me have known that I have been a critic of police brutality and a critic of police corruption, especially by me being a victim of Chicago police corruption. But, we hear, or let's just say a whole lot of us, we think that we know, cases like Mike Brown and Alton Sterling and Philando Castillo and Eric Garner. These are cases that we only hear about more or less through the media, because I have dealt with videos and done videos on all of this stuff before. On matter of fact, all of these people who I just mentioned. But yesterday there was an incident that I saw yesterday with my own eyes, and I would have to say that by me seeing this incident with my own eyes, I think that I'm going to come on here for a second and talk about it, because I actually saw what I think is police misconduct and police corruption with my own two eyes. And this took place yesterday. You might be seeing, a whole lot of you all might be seeing this video on Monday or at least late Sunday night. So this particular incident took place on Saturday afternoon, September 17th, at around 12, almost 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay, I was going out to see my uncle, because my uncle is in a nursing home in the suburbs in Bridgeview, and they were having their family and friends day. So I said I would go and see him. I had left my home around before 12. But by the time I made it to Ford City Mall, many of you all who are watching in Chicago know about that. But for those who don't know, is that Ford City Mall is the place where the 79th Street bus drops in. The end of the line is Ford City Mall. But then if you want to go further, further south suburbs, or further if you want to go to Orland Square Mall, or even if you want to go to the airport, you can catch another bus, which is a Pace bus, which for you all who don't live here, for the benefit of you all who don't live here, the Pace buses are our suburban buses. You can catch those to different, other places. So I had to catch a 379 going to 79th in Harlem, and I guess I had just missed the 379 because the bus made it to Ford City around 12:15. So I called RTA, and they told me that the next bus wasn't going to be until 1:01 p.m. So I just said, okay, I'll go in the mall and everything, walk around and everything for a bit, because for September, it still is kind of warm here in Chicago. So I walked around the mall, even had a burger. I'm dressed in my all white, because yesterday our lodge's annual banquet was yesterday, so I had on my all white and everything. And then I leave to come out around 12:50. And then I'm walking out the door, I'm passing IHOP, and there's a young man, I think he's a teenager or something, walking sort of beside me. All of a sudden, there's this regular car, it's just a car, that pulls up on the left side of me. All of a sudden, it hits its brakes. Then all of a sudden, I see a guy get out the car, then all of a sudden I hear, "Police, get on the ground!" Now, I just kept on walking because I didn't know whether this was a real cop or not, because he had on regular clothes just like anybody else. So I wasn't going to pay that any attention, because many times police officers, or let's just say people posing as police officers, could be posing as that to try to rob you or whatever. So I didn't know. So the other guy who I was, walking besides, he hit the ground. Because this guy who was the police officer had his gun and everything out. And come to find out, because I walked, but I stayed like a good safe distance away. Safe distance is like 20 to 25 feet, to be able to hear everything that was going on. So I had heard this so-called off-duty cop. Now keep that in your mind now when I say off-duty. Supposedly this guy who was walking beside me was a passenger in a car where it was driven by one of his friends, and his friend accidentally, it was an accident, hit this police officer's personal vehicle with his children in it. But it was just a love tap. It was nothing, because the car was still drivable and everything. But I guess this off-duty cop got so pissed off because his friend ran. That's what it is. And I guess they couldn't find his friend. So therefore, they decided to get the next best thing, which was the passenger. The way that he was cursing at him and talking to him, talking about, you fucking puta yo. In case you don't know what that means in Spanish, that's the B word in Spanish. Don't you know something? My fucking kids was in the car at the time. This is the cop, off-duty cop, talking to the guy on the ground. And then all of a sudden, Ford City police pulled up. And then I'm trying to call RTA back. I'm looking for a number in my phone. Then a Ford City officer walks over to me and asks me, am I recording anything? I told her no. She walked away. Some fat, big, black, burly, ugly looking broad. Stinking. Oh, well, I digress. To me, all of that, I don't think, and I want everybody to keep this in mind, off-duty. He was off-duty, and this is what I talk about time and time again, but some of you all just don't get it. I don't feel like police officers should have that kind of power to settle personal problems like they have with somebody, like they do by using their job titles to do it, because that's exactly what this cop did. And all the time, because they were searching the guy and everything, they were trying to put something on him, and they ended up cuffing the guy and everything, even though he's just a passenger. But legally, it's the driver who bears responsibility, because it's the driver who's behind the wheel. The passenger didn't have anything to do with what his friend decided to do, whether his friend decided to run from the scene of an accident or not. So why are they messing with the passenger? This is something I'm not getting. They had 2 or 3 or 4 police cars and everything pulling up and all of this other kind of stuff all over one person. This is something I see with my own eyes. How the off-duty cop talked to him and how he cursed at him. And somebody going to tell me, because I went and I talked to some other officers today, which is Sunday, at Ford City about the incident. And then, one security guard telling me, well, police officers, they're always on duty no matter what. But, I think that if you're on duty, or if you have a job, but no matter what you call yourself, that your job is to always be professional. The way that this guy spoke to him was just unconscionable. It was absolutely scandalous. And he was just a passenger, having no idea of what his friend was going to do. Because the passenger told his friend, after I guess he saw him hit the car, to let him out. Because he said that, as far as a hit and run, he didn't want to be tied up in that. You never know. I probably would have done the same thing. So that's what he was trying to do, is just remove himself from the situation, because that's all you can do in those kind of cases, is remove yourself from the situation, because you don't bear any responsibility or have any knowledge of what a driver of a car is going to do if you're a passenger. That's all you can do is remove yourself from the problem. And I just think that it's a bigger problem when the officer spoke to him the way that he did. And to me, a whole lot of that kind of stuff, it was just all for nothing. I mean, so what? Somebody hit your personal vehicle. I mean, join the club. It happens to people every single day in this country. I don't think that that should cause anyone, especially an officer of the law who people always want to say, no matter what, is always on duty, to act in the way that he acted. Especially something you coming and driving up besides me, somebody who don't have anything to do with the incident, and this other guy and you pulling your piece. What if that gun had accidentally fired and ended up shooting me? Because one thing that you're always supposed to know about gun safety is, as far as I know, you're not supposed to pull a weapon when someone else could be in the line of fire. Stupid. I had to come and tell you about this incident because, like I said, this is an incident that I saw with my own two eyes. Not something that I read about. Not something that somebody told me. Not something that I heard about on the news. Not something that I heard about on the radio. But something that I saw with my own two eyes and heard with my own two ears. Just because this cop's car got personal vehicle ended up getting hit, he decides to come and just act like a jackass and just abuse his authority as a Chicago police officer. Many of you get all upset with me because I talk about these kind of things, but this is something that a whole lot of us experience in everyday life, especially living in Chicago, where, we see things, and just because something goes on with us and a police officer, we might not even know it's a police officer, but yet we could get caught up into something to where they use their powers to punish you greater than powers can be used with a normal person when you have done the same thing to a normal person. Kind of reminds me a little bit of what happened to my friend's nephew. To where, in case you all didn't see the video, because it did get taken down by YouTube, her nephew walked on a piece of private property. I guess he wanted to go take a piss or something. He thought it was a big alley. Come to find out, it was nothing but a big driveway. And this guy comes running out the house and ends up beating him up. And come to find out later, it's a Chicago police officer. And they end up charging my friend's nephew, who's mentally retarded. Well, I'm not going to say mentally retarded, but it's another condition called delayed cognitive disorder. 19 years old, but has the mind of maybe a 7 or 8-year-old. End up charging him with 2 or 3 felonies: criminal trespass to private property, assault and battery on a police officer, and aggravated assault on a peace officer. 3 felonies. Count them, 3. But if this had been just the average everyday person who he went on his property or something, that would never been done. But they overcharged the case, and to me, they just went too far. So what they did was, in the end, I didn't tell you how it all ended. It ended like a few months ago, to where they decided to drop the other 2 felonies, and they played it down to just misdemeanor trespass. That's all it was. Because, at first they had him in house on house arrest, all of that and stuff, because it was a police officer. Big deal. Whenever you take that uniform off, you're just the same as me and everybody else. They should not have this sweeping power to do whatever they want to, even though they are not on the job. I think that's the biggest problem I have. These are people who have entirely too much power. Only God Almighty is supposed to have power like that, not human beings. Because people like you and I, just human beings, really, us, we can't handle that kind of power in the flesh. Because if you had to handle that kind of power in the flesh, when your flesh gets in the way, just like this officer's flesh ended up getting in the way yesterday, You know, you might go overboard and it might cause you to do certain things that the average person would not normally do. So that's how come I don't think that any average person can really handle the job of being a police officer, because it's too much power. And most people cannot handle power, because if you was a butthole already in regular life, or a bad person in regular life, or just a low-down, filthy, evil person in regular life, you're going to be this way when you put on a uniform. And if this guy spoke to this guy like that all over his personal vehicle, I'm wondering, how does this guy treat a suspect when he arrests them? I'm wondering that. So I just had to come on here and report that, because, like I said, this is something that I saw with my own eyes, not something that someone told me. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give me a thumbs up, and I hope that everybody will watch and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next video. Once again, this is Roosevelt with Roosevelt Sounds Off. Peace and blessings to all.